All right, folks, we just gone live. This is a test broadcast. Hello, hello, everybody. Please come on in, come on in. This is a test broadcast right now. We are also simultaneously simulcasting live on our radio app Zeno.fm. So, everybody, please, who already downloaded Zeno.fm, may I encourage you guys to start listening in on our app Zeno.fm, and I would like to get inputs from our listeners. But since Zeno.fm doesn't is a radio app, and we're going live right now on the radio app, and it doesn't have like a comment section, I would like to ask our listeners, please, to check it out. Download our Zeno app. Okay, I'll put the download link here if I can get it on time. But this is a test broadcast, test, test, test broadcast. We are simultaneously broadcasting on our radio app, Zeno FM. Please download the app and listen to the quality of the sound. And I would like to ask our listeners on Facebook and YouTube to please leave comments to let us know the clarity of how we're coming across out there on the internet, because there's no way for me to hear exactly how clear we are on the internet right now, except I am directly connected from the source, and it's not always the source is not always exactly how it sounds, the way we sound out there on the internet. So, folks, we are simultaneously live casting right now. This is a test broadcast on our Zeno radio, our radio app right now. We are live on our radio app right now, Zeno.fm. And and I'm gonna get the link right now so that I can give it to our listeners. If you can just give me a second here, let me get that for you, folks. And I will put it on. Let me put it down on the comment section. So if you have an iPhone, this first comment that you will see on the comment section are for iPhone users. You can download the free app, a free radio app, using that link that I just shared on the comment section right now. Folks, so because we are going to be continually censored on this platform, we'd like for everybody to, who's listening on the social media, I'd like you guys to click on the link that I just shared this. If you have an iPhone, that is the link to download the free app. And if you have Android, I will get the link for you, and you can download the free app for an Android phone. And here it's coming. Give me a second. There you go, folks. For everybody who's listening in on social media, I just shared the link for both the Apple free download of the radio app, and for Android users, the free download, the link to the free download of the radio app. Please download the radio app right now, because I'd like to get a test, and I would like to get everybody's opinion how we sound out there on the internet, because we are broadcasting live on Zeno.fm. We're broadcasting live on the radio app right now. And I really want to get an input from our listeners. How clear are we coming across out there on on our reception? So whoever's listening right now, please do us a favor. We need your help. This is a test broadcast of going live on our Zeno FM radio app. This is real time. This is real time right now. We're testing, we're testing, we're testing. This is a test broadcast of our Zeno Live FM radio app. And we'd like you to download the app and give us an assistance here and tell us how clear are we coming across out there, because we cannot objectively evaluate how we sound, how I sound from my. I'm listening from the source, so the source for me would be perfectly clear because my headphones is attached to the source. But we need assistance right now from our loyal listeners to download the app, listen to the live broadcast that we're doing right now on the app, and give us an input. How clear and how audible are we? And if we're loud enough, or we're too soft, or we're muffled, we'd like that kind of comments, please. But straight from the radio app, we don't. The radio app doesn't have any comment section. So I'd like you to listen on the app, but then leave the comment here on Facebook. Leave the comment here on YouTube as you listen to us on the radio app. So, folks, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna run this test for 20 minutes, and I will wait for everybody's input. Thank you very much for helping us out.
Freedom Fighter Radio, what is up? Whoa! Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio and Joe. You're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right, always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes.
Hey guys, this is Chris Sky. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
Freedom Fighter Radio, what is up? Whoa! Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio and Joe. You're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right, always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes.
Hey guys, this is Chris Sky. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
Freedom Fighter Radio, what is up? Whoa! Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio and Joe. You're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right, always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes.
Hey guys, this is Chris Sky. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
All right, folks, this is your host, Joey Salvador. This is Freedom Fighter Radio. This is a test broadcast as we simultaneously broadcast right here on our usual channels. But as you know, we're still restricted from broadcasting in some of our very important channels. But for some of our channels, we are able to broadcast right now. But we need your help, folks, because this is a test broadcast that we're trying right now. We are live right now on our app. If you haven't downloaded the app yet, please check the comment section. I provided the link for the free download for the iPhone users, and also the link for free download for Android users. We'd like to ask your help, folks, to comment on how clear is the radio app broadcast right now. Please download the app, listen to our live test broadcast happening right now, and come back to Facebook and give us a comment if we are coming across clear. Are we muffled? Are we too loud? Are we too soft? Are we totally clear? Uh, the way we are coming across there out in the internet. We need your help, folks. Please help us out. We need your input. We need to know how clear we are on the radio app. Today is the very first time that we are going live on our radio app, because the radio app doesn't work before in the live version of it. It was working as a sort of like a podcast hosting a channel where we can upload previous episodes, but we were not able to go live on a radio app before. But today is the very first day we are able to go live on our radio app. And so we'd like your help, please, folks. Tell us how clear, if we are clear, if we are audible, our levels, how are we coming across to you guys out there? Please let us know. Come to the comment section, and as we play some of our loops, we'd like you to listen to the app and then come to the comment section here on the social medias and let us know how clear we are on the radio app. Thank you, folks, for your help.
On the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes. Hey guys, this is Chris Guy. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
Freedom Fighter Radio. What is up? Whoa! Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio. And Joe, you're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right? Always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes. Hey guys, this is Chris Guy. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
Freedom Fighter Radio. What is up? Whoa! Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio. And Joe, you're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right? Always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes. Hey guys, this is Chris Guy. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
Freedom Fighter Radio. What is up? Whoa! Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio. And Joe, you're doing great work, brother. Freedom Fighter Radio. What is up? Whoa! Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio. And Joe, you're doing great work, brother. And I love it. All right? Always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes. Hey guys, this is Chris Guy. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning to all our freedom fighters worldwide. This is your host, Joey Salvador. This is Freedom Fighter Radio, only here on the Ordinary Joe Show. And today is Sunday, a beautiful day. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Folks, we continue to be shadow banned by this platform. And I can see that most of the channels that we have created is not allowed to go live. But today we are live on Rumble. And so please check the description down below. I'd really want us to start watching our live broadcast on Rumble from now on. Fortunately, I can still broadcast on my personal profile now and one of a very old page, which is OJTV Filipino Canadian Daily, which we don't have all of our freedom fighters in there because that was originally for the Filipino Canadian uh, entertainment space, or well, news and entertainment. That's why it's called News Magazine. But most of our freedom fighters, most of our listeners are on Freedom Fighter Radio Canada Facebook page that actually increased to 15,000 followers in a very short time. But I can see right now the red exclamation mark right beside the channels that we want to be able um, to broadcast, but unfortunately we're not broadcasting there. So we will be able to post it after we go live. We will be able to post it there on those channels, but not live. And I miss all the people that I interact with on those channels. But I am learning our lesson to be learned here, that unless the Lord builds a house, the laborers build in vain. And so from now on, I put the Lord God to be forefront builder of these radio shows that we go live with. However, I can see that there are still some. So welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me today. If you leave me a name of your city and local time, I will give you a shout out just before the break. Also, we are on Rumble right now, folks. So on the description down below, I think if you're watching from my personal profile, you'll be able to see the description to our Rumble. I would like to encourage everybody to please start subscribing to our Rumble page, as this shadow banning will not stop, folks. I think that the more we do this, the more we broadcast, the more they will try and silence us, because as we know, Facebook really doesn't like our message, doesn't like our um, side of the argument of what's going on in the world right now. Thank you for joining Nathan Lodgy from Edmonton, Alberta. Fabian Catri, good morning, Joe. Have a great show and a wonderful day from Saskatoon. Thank you, Fabian. Thank you, Nathan. It's 6:30 in the morning in Edmonton. Wow, you're an early riser. It's 8:30 now here in Toronto. I only had about an hour's sleep, but I couldn't sleep because there's a lot of things going on in my mind, and I thought I'll go live right now, even though I knew that we would probably most likely be in very limited channels right now. But rest assured that after we go live, well, essentially it will become a podcast, which means it's not live. I will be uploading this also on our OJTV radio. And if you go to our comment section, you will see the link to how to listen to our Zeno.fm, and you can also download. I would like to encourage everybody to download the app, um, so that you can listen to this radio show on the app. That as soon as I have it uploaded there, what happened is 2 minutes right after I go off live, when we're done with the show, I go to the Zeno FM app. I upload at the morning. Our voice to be heard on the pages where people have subscribed and like our page. And what does that tell you? When people are liking and subscribing, it means they want to hear the message. They subscribe to our page. Hello, hello, folks. I just realized that people did not hear that test broadcast. So basically, we are broadcasting right now, test broadcast right now, simultaneously with our radio app. This is the very first time. Today is the very first day we are broadcasting on Zeno FM radio app, and would like to get everybody's input out there, because you know how it works is, from where I am, since I'm the one broadcasting, I can only hear the source, which always give me a false representation. Well, basically, it's going to be clear from the source. It'll be super crisp, clear, loud and clear from the source. But I would like to ask your help, folks, out there who can volunteer and listen to our radio app broadcast and let us know if we're coming across loud and clear. So the radio app link for the free download can be seen on the comment section right now. The first sets are for iPhone users, http forward slash apps.apple.com, and with all of those other peripherals. You can click on the link and download the free radio app if you're using an iPhone. And the second set of links are for Android users. Click on the link, download the radio app, and please listen to this test broadcast and let us know if we are sounding loud and clear out there. We would really love your input. And as we go back to a rerun of this morning's radio show, please leave a comment on the comment section here on Facebook, as the radio app itself doesn't have a comment section to let us know how loud or clear, or if we're muffled, or if we are too soft out there on the radio app. So please leave the comments here on Facebook, listen to the radio app, and leave the comments here on Facebook. Thank you all for listening in, and thank you for helping us out. God bless you. Let's listen in to this morning's radio show. And so when Facebook was saying, excuse me, folks, it's a little itchy throat this morning. A little water can be a big help. So when people are saying, I like and I follow your page, that goes to show that people want to be notified. Number one, whenever we go live, and number two, they like the message that we spread from this channel. They People like and resonate. The message that we speak of on this channel resonates with people, and it's very relevant to what people need and want to hear on this day and age, in this kind of a political climate that we live in. But when 15,000 plus 3,000 more on another smaller page are telling us they want to listen to us, and then Facebook silences us by not allowing us to go broadcast live. Essentially, what they're saying, oh, your voice and your message, uh, they will put an exclamation point or an alert or a warning, and they say whatever your message, whatever you're saying on your show, go against community standard. And I wonder what kind of community are they talking about? Because the community that we have, 15,000 people strong, plus 3,000 more on a smaller page, have said they want to listen to us. So, what kind of community standards are they basing this to? Because the community who decided to like and follow our page is saying we want to keep on hearing, we want to keep on communicating, we want to keep on staying connected. But, well, Facebook decides, well, that's against the community, because I don't know what kind of community are they talking about, but our community wants to continue on listening and communicating about our message. So, well, it's just nothing else can be said about that but a blatant censorship and a blatant silencing of the message that we speak of. So that's the world we live in. And I guess we can whine all day and complain all day why they are such tyrants to our cause, but that will only go so far, folks. Um, trying to, well, apparently my iPad here is dead, so I cannot do my timer, but we'll get that fixed, folks. So I would like to rely on every single member of our freedom fighting community. um, that digitally we are being coerced, being suppressed, being silenced. But with your help, I believe that we can move forward our message and our voice and our communication by you helping out Freedom Fighter Radio and getting the link from Rumble. Rumble will be uh, s- slowly but surely. Well, Rumble will be our main page to broadcast our message from now on. We are going to continue to simulcast also on these Facebook pages, because people have already drawn near to our channels. But we just need to find a way to reach them and tell them, hey, come over to Rumble, come over to Zeno FM and listen to us on Zeno FM, because that's where we won't be silenced. We won't be, penalized for speaking the truth. So shout out to some of our freedom fighters across the world who also gave us a thumbs up. Thank you to Ron Hernando, Leticia Rubino, Terry Lee. Terry Lee, pretty early riser too, and Kevin Creedon on the like section, and on the comment section, Fabian Katrine, Nathan Logie, and Brian Kenny Kemp. Brian Kenny Kemp is from Australia. Thank you for joining us from Australia. I thought you won't be able to hear us today because the page where most of our Australian 20% of the 15,000, according to the analytics, are from Australia. Sorry, sorry. Oh, got an itchy throat today, folks. But 20% of our Freedom Fighter Radio page, 20% of the 15,000 followers are from Australia. So I thought you won't be hearing us today because we are banned from going live there. But Brian Benny Kemp, thank you for joining us. I will friend you guys who have liked many of our previous broadcasts in our channels. I'm gonna friend you on the my personal profile so that we can get connected, stay connected, even when we get restricted from going live in this other channels. So, anyways, let's move on, folks. Today, I want to talk about all the blatant lies that we can see from the governments of the world. Uh, One thing that really weighs heavy in my heart is this unending wars that we see. Um, Primarily, top of the list we can think about is Afghanistan. So yesterday we just had, the 20th anniversary of the attacks to 9/11, and I don't know if everybody. So for me personally, I don't even watch mainstream media, so I don't know what kind of coverage mainstream media have been doing this past few days just to come out to commemorate all the 3,000 Americans that died on the 9/11 attacks. What a horrific scene that has been etched into our minds forever. And also, we seen some of those people that are falling over on the side of the building back in 9/11. Some people think they're jumpers, they're jumping over, but I think personally that they were not jumping off. I think they were just, most likely some of those that are falling off the side of the buildings are probably dying while they're hanging, dying of the heat. Heat can really kill a person. Um, but looking into this part of our history, I remember that one of the former presidents of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower, had a long speech about the military industrial complex. And I honestly think that the entire debacle that's going on in Afghanistan and the Middle East, a lot of people thinks it has a lot to do with the oil. And in my opinion, I think there are some things to do about the oil, but I really think a far more sinister agenda with all these unending wars, and it's not just the oil. I really think the oil is just one of the front pretend. mm, I would say it's a pretend reason for all of these unending wars in the Middle East. But I think it has also had a lot of things to do with the military industrial complex and how the business of war and the business of creating instruments of war needs to be kept going, or else if there are no wars, then there's no business of wars, right? So that is just my thought. And in my estimation, in the recent history. I think, I believe, I remember that the United States and the world community actually, because every time the United States go and do something in Afghanistan or in the Middle East, it's not unilateral. They usually go with a coalition force. They involve the United Nations, they involve other countries to come and do the bidding for them as well. So it makes it look like that it legitimizes the wars that the Americans, well, I'm not gonna call it an American war, because many of these wars, including North Korea, the South Korean War, Vietnam War, and all of these unending wars in the Middle East, I would say that most Americans are opposed to these wars, but it keeps on continuing on, not because it is the desire of the people, but it is because it is the desire of the military industrial complex and the politicians that are supported and who supports the entire industrial complex. And I will dissect all of that for you folks as we move along on this particular broadcast today. But for now, let's take a short break. And when we come back, we are going to continue on talking about the military industrial complex and how these unending wars not only affect us, all of us, directly, but it affects how the entire world is run. There was a book that came out not too long ago. The title of the book that all wars are banker wars. So with that, folks, don't go away. When we come back, we're going to talk about the unending wars and the military industrial complex and how it is all tied up with all of the pandemic that we're also experiencing nowadays. So, folks, don't go away. I'm your host, Joey Salvador. This is Freedom Fighter Radio, only here on The Ordinary Joe. We'll be back in less than a minute.
Freedom Fighter Radio. What is up? Whoa! Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio and Joe. You're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right, always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes. Hey guys, this is Chris Guy. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to the show. This is your host, Joey Salvador. This is Freedom Fighter Radio, only here on The Ordinary Joe on a Sunday morning broadcast. Thank you for joining me. And shout out to all our listeners from all over the world. We're not able to reach, not even, we're only reaching less than 10% of our usual audience today in this live broadcast because we are continued to be restricted from going live on many of the channels that we were told by our listeners and followers. We like your message. We like what you talk about. So we are going to click like and subscribe so that we'll be notified next time we go live. But folks, they won't allow us to go live. So what can we do? Thank you for continuing to tune in. We were talking about the military industrial complex, and we're talking about these unending wars. And I really think that as though many people have thought that, especially the Middle Eastern wars, many people think, and it's partly true. I would say it's partly true that these wars are all about the oil because the Middle East has a lot of oil. But remember, folks, we the Canadians are part of the coalition whenever they go and attack the Middle Eastern countries and getting involved there with Iraq, Iran. Right now it's Afghanistan. That's a big Kabul, Afghanistan. That's a big item on the show right now. And yesterday we just had the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. And when I was looking back to many of my favorite documentaries that talked about um, the 9/11 attacks, I there are some things that I haven't seen before, but I'm starting to see now that there is a lot of parallelism in 2001 and 20 years, almost to the dot. Well, actually, yesterday, it's exactly 20 years to the dot when the 9/11 attacks happened, but also many things happen around it. Many things happen around it, before it, after it, and what's going on right now. There's a lot of parallelism that I can see happening with our our present history. The biggest one, folks, that I would want you to try and dig deeper in and pay attention to. Every time there's something very scary that happens in our history, right after, right after whatever big event happens, soon after that, there's always a reaction, a knee jerk reaction. And it's usually capitalizing on the fear of the people who just witnessed a very horrific event where politicians worldwide just all of a sudden increase their unprecedented power. They're able to exercise unprecedented power or gain more power that in otherwise during peaceful times these powers are limited, especially in Western societies, especially in democratic societies. Much of these powers are limited, but then with the power of fear, with the power of unseen threat, people are always willing to give in to awarding many of our politicians or leader of our nations unprecedented power. Right after 9/11 attacks, people are fearful. Do you see something similar? Nowadays, people are also very fearful starting around March of 2020. People are so scared, and the mainstream media is instrumental showing all those scary videos of and stories of freezer trailers being parked beside hospitals and you know people burying mass graves, people in mass graves in hazmat suits that are supposedly being secretly filmed by a drone and things like that. But many months later, we saw also hidden cameras that captured footage of crisis actors pretending to be dead people lying down on dump trucks. We seen some props of people, supposedly dead people, but one young, one very thin and thin, looking like a very slim and lightweight lady can carry three or four of those dead people in one arm, right? So we know that they are props that are just being laid down on the side of the road. And we've seen many of these. But with great fear comes great power grab right after. Soon after, you can see that. So that's one of the biggest parallelism that I can see from the 2001 9/11 attacks and the 2020 and now 2021, grab of power that happens all over the world. But I can speak for mostly only here in Canada. All the unprecedented powers and all the unprecedented, almost unilateral rules about so many things that happen right after an event where when people got scared. So here in Canada, all of the major parties were willing to accept and to heed to shutting down the parliament, or initially they didn't even have a regular session on Zoom. um, and when they started having the parliament meetings, and even to this day I believe the parliament meetings, well, it's kind of like shut down right now because we're in the election season. But before the election, the parliament here in Canada are attended only by very few people. Like, I think it's only 20% of the capacity of the chambers where the MPs are allowed to come in. So when the MPs cannot deliberate on laws and rules and examine what's going on in the country, sorry folks, really something bothering my throat today. When the parliamentarians, the members of parliament, are not able to gather together to scrutinize whatever laws needs to be, or regulations, or you know uh, the direction of the country. Historically, many of these emergency powers, when they are awarded to politicians, they tend to be permanent. They tend to not go away for a long time, right? And even so let's take for example what's just happening here in Ontario. Ideally, some of those emergency powers should expire in 30 days. But then, while they have the 30-day long, especially Dogford, do you know that since June, Dogford was given extra unilateral power here in Ontario that extends since June? He has extra powers, unprecedented powers, until December 1st, 2001. 2021, I mean. Sorry, folks. But how could that be? And why that is a very sinister event that people's memory are very short about it. People kind of forget what happened during that Monday. I believe that's a Monday night when people supposed to be out there protecting our democracy, but I believe only a handful, about 70 people, went out there to protest about it. And also, more than half of the MPPs, or the member of provincial parliament, actually didn't show up. So everything is just everything is just orchestrated. Nancy died. Hello, Nancy. And she's saying she has no sound. Nancy, just please check because it seems like everybody else has sound. Fabian Katri was saying after 9/11, they passed legislations letting them spy on their population to screen for terrorists. They still use the same tech today, actually probably upgraded. Very good point, Fabian. I want to talk about how that event in 9/11. I don't think so. So in 2001, we don't have very strong Facebook, very strong YouTube. In 2001, I believe many of the social media became much stronger around mid 2000s, right? About 2004, 2005, 2006. That's when all these big YouTubers became superstars. Facebook became almost like mainstream. But before 2005, if my memory serves me right, 2001, not everybody's on social media like the way we do now in 2001. Because if that was the case, I would have a lot of memory about how people are reacting to that 9/11 attacks if we were on Facebook then. But I believe that 9/11 really created a platform for things like Facebook to be uh, more more mainstream, and with that also data gathering become more mainstream. What I'm trying to point out is the NSA being allowed to spy on its own citizen in the United States, which, as we know, in the modern day era of our technological technocratic digital community worldwide, data collection, privacy, has been all of that has been prepared for uh, all these tech giants, big tech, such as Facebook and Google and all them. They were given a lot of powers too by the events of 9/11. And folks, don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages.
Freedom Fighter Radio. What is up? Whoa! Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio and Joe. You're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right, always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes. Hey guys, this is Chris Guy. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
It's Freedom Fighter Radio only here on the Ordinary Joe Show. I'm your host, Joey Salvador. On a Sunday morning, thank you for joining us. And you will be hearing this after the live cast. You'll be hearing this loop all day on our radio app, Zeno FM /OJTV Canada. Please download the app, and also you can watch us right now live on Rumble. Go to our comment section and you can see the link to our live cast on Rumble. Rumble will be our very main place to do all this broadcast from now on. And welcome to all our listeners from all across the world. And just before we went on break, we were talking about the 9/11, and with the comment of our brother Fabian Catri, he was talking about 9/11. When 9/11 happened, right after 9/11, they passed all of this legislation that gave a lot of unprecedented powers to the president of the United States, and they started spying on their own people. And with the 9/11, it also opened the argument to attack Afghanistan, and then the United States also attacked Iraq, which has nothing to do with 9/11. But since they already have the power, they might as well exercise all these unprecedented powers that the Congress has given to the president, to the executive. Um, Folks, please help us out with our finances. I would like to encourage you to join our Patreon for only $3 USD a month. You can help us cover our costs um, on a month to month basis. If everybody, like we're trying to goal, we're praying for a goal of 1,000 Patreon members, so that everybody will just be pitching a little bit and nobody will be so um, hurt by $3. I think everybody can afford $3 a month, and when you join our Patreon, it automatically gets taken from your account so that you can donate automatically on a monthly basis. to Freedom Fighter Radio, and with that, you can help us fight the lies and the deception of mainstream media. So please do join us on our patreon.com/OJTV Canada. Or if you are willing to give us some love on a one time basis, fundojtv at gmail.com. Fundojtv at gmail.com. This email address for all Canadians is our email address where we accept gifts and donations. Fundojtv at gmail.com. And patreon.com/OJTV Canada. So, folks, we were talking about, um, let me just redo this timer. 7 minutes per segment so that I don't run out of breath. And also, um, I don't run out of throat power. So, folks, we were talking about how 9/11 really created unprecedented powers for governments. And historically, again, when people allow extra powers or emergency powers be granted to their governments, most of the time those emergency powers becomes permanent, or it will take a lot of fighting to rescind all of those unprecedented emergency powers that we grant our politicians. Let me tell you that what I found out from, the 9/11 and the 2001 or 2021, which is actually 2020, when all of these pandemic just been rolled out on us. Everything that's happening before, during, and after the 9/11 attacks, a lot of things that happened around that time has a lot of similarity that's happening around this time, when we have a different kind of terror attack, an invisible terror attack in the name of a virus. Do you know that the Americans, or led by the Americans, but actually the worldwide coalition, do you know that the international community has given the Afghanistan, specifically the Taliban, American weaponry, tanks, Humvees, helicopters, grenades, grenade launchers, bullets, automatic weapons, big guns, three times in recent history, three times in the $1 billion worth, three times. And you know the saying that famously been quoted by the Bush Jr. president. Oops, what's happening here? Sorry about that. The mouse was on the music. Sorry. One of the famously quoted quote by the Bush Jr. W. Bush Jr. He says, "You fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me." But I think the international community has been fooled three times, thrice, folks, when it comes to giving heavy equipment, tanks, artillery, weaponry to the Taliban, three times in recent history. So the very first one was when the Americans gave the Afghans, so-called freedom fighter Afghans, and I wouldn't blame the ordinary Jane and Joe of Afghans. This whole hoax, as the players of this hoax are the American military industrial complex, some of the tyrants in Afghanistan, some of the warlords and the drug lords in Afghanistan. And the victims are the Afghan people and the military. men and women, they are the victims of these unending wars in Afghanistan. So, going back to my point, do you know that the international community led by the Americans have given the Afghans, not the ordinary Afghans or not the Afghan military, I'm talking about the terrorist organization in Afghanistan, such as ISIS and the Taliban. The international community led by the Americans have given ISIS and Taliban heavy weaponry three times in recent history. So the very first one is in the late 70s when the Americans were helping the Afghans drive the Soviets away from Afghanistan. So the Americans thought, but I think not, okay, so not everybody who's part of the American military industrial complex are privy to the knowledge of this. But these are all like like as usual, folks. I'm connecting the dots, and people call that conspiracy theory when you connect the dots or you analyze data or you interpret data. You put your interpretation and your analysis. What is the data telling me when you don't have a direct evidence? People call you conspiracy theorists, but that's how science works, folks. Science always function in the method of having a hypothesis. And with your hypothesis, you start with a hypothesis and then you try and test uh, what are the features of your hypothesis that can be proven to be true and what can be proven to be not true. That's how scientific method works. But for three times, how can we be so stupid worldwide? Or is it just a matter of us having very short memories? That's why same kind of crime is happening over and over and over again. Is that the reason? But three times, the international community, led by the Americans, have given terrorists. Good morning, David. Hello, David. Nice to see you, brother. We're not able to broadcast on our main page again, but thank you for coming in. I know you're watching me from or listening to our show from my profile. But going back to our conversation, three times the international community, led by the Americans, have given billions of dollars of worth of tanks, artillery, Humvees, bullets, automatic weapons, tanks, helicopters to terrorist organization in recent history. So the very first one is in the late 70s when the Americans gave the Afghans arms to try and fight. I think it's called the Stinger missile. It's one of the winners, the favorite tool that the Americans awarded to the Afghans so that they can drive away the Soviets from Afghanistan. But as soon as that was accomplished, folks, as soon as as soon as it was accomplished by the coalition between Americans and Afghans drove away the Soviets from Afghanistan, the Afghans redirected and pointed the guns that they received from the Americans, the very guns, the very tanks, the very Stinger missiles and RPGs, the very RPGs that they received from the Americans, they turned around and pointed it against the Americans. So it was the American tools of war, it was the American weaponry, but the Afghans used it against the Americans to drive the Americans out of Afghanistan. So the Americans were away from Afghanistan for many years, and then 2001 happened, right? 2001, 9/11 attacks, which were the anniversary happened yesterday. And I don't know how many reminder commemoration did mainstream media did, because I haven't been watching mainstream media for almost 10 years now. I haven't seen television for almost 10 years. I have streaming TV. I have all kinds of streaming apps, YouTube and Netflix, and I have all that. Once a week I sit back and relax and watch some television, but not your mainstream TV. I watch a little bit of Netflix once a week, and I don't watch television or very limited mainstream radio, mostly music, jazz music. And if I listen to talk radio, that's usually just when I'm driving my wife to work. So for about half an hour every time she has a duty, that's the only time I listen to mainstream talk radio. So I don't know how much did the mainstream media reminded people that it was the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks yesterday. It seems to me that there's not a lot of attention given towards it. But again, I don't know. Maybe there was. I just don't know because I don't watch mainstream media. But the 2001 9/11 attacks really should have taught us a lot of lesson. But decades after decades, it's been 2 decades since, and we haven't learned our lesson. How fear is always the tool that the tyrants have used against the ordinary folks, the ordinary members of societies worldwide. It's not only the American society, but the Canadian society, many Asian countries, their societies were all duped, were all deceived, but we never learn from the lessons of history. And when people don't learn from the lessons of history, we're bound to repeat it over and over and over and over. If we learn the lessons of history, how fear has been used against the people so that certain members of government can increase their powers, we would not have allowed extra powers be granted to any of our governments, provincial, federal, even the governments in the United States, the governments in the Philippines, South Korea, Japan, Australia, United Kingdom. All of these governments will not acquire any more additional powers if we just learn the lesson of history, specifically from 9/11. So, folks, in the late 70s, the world community, the international community, gave big guns to the terrorist organizations in Afghanistan to push away the Soviets, and yet it was used against the people of Afghanistan. These tools of war, it was used against the Americans and against the international community. And so for many years, the international community were not in Afghanistan. And then 2001 happened, 9/11 attacks happened. It gave the governments and the international military industrial complex an excuse to go back and attack Afghanistan. And we were there ever since. And this has been the longest war in the American history. The war in Afghanistan has been the longest war. And abruptly, we seen the withdrawal about a few weeks ago, and we seen people dropping from cargo planes, military cargo planes, to their deaths, hanging on the side of the planes. Did that end the war? No, I don't think so. I think we're still in the war, right? But the second time around was during the Obama years when there was an abrupt withdrawal. Um, I can't remember the details of it. I know that Hillary Clinton was also part of the entire. Um, Remember when they withdrew from some of the consulate were killed, and then ISIS was able to took over many of the gears one more time. So that was the second time during the Obama years. I can't remember the details about it, but Hillary Clinton and her lack of interest to respond to one of um, I can't remember the detail, but it allowed ISIS to get a hold of Humvees, helicopters, guns, big guns. So that was the second time, and the third time is what we witnessed just a few weeks ago. So you think about that. I'm just in my mind. I feel like, how could that keep on happening? Where the international community, supposedly a coalition led by the Americans, would go to such a place, and and we and we hear even from mainstream media, and we heard it from Donald Trump, that maybe this was an excuse to go to Afghanistan to get the oil. But folks, they nobody took any oil. They left the oil. And actually some of the oil wells were burning. Remember those days when the oil wells were burning when they left? So the oil was there. The oil was not taken. So I wonder, is the oil reasoning only a front? Here's my thoughts, folks. Here are my thoughts. And we'll take a break in about a minute from now. I have a last minute to to this segment here. Here are my thoughts. It's not about the oil. I really think that this unending wars has nothing to do about oil. Well, maybe a little. There's probably a little to do with oil. Remember, Canada is one of has one of the biggest reserve of oil. Why do we need to be part of that oil war? We have oil here in Canada. I think we're only the second or the third largest oil reserves in the world, or probably second only to Saudi Arabia, or maybe third only to Venezuela. But I believe that Canada has one of the top three sources of oil reserves in the world. So we need not be part. If Afghanistan was an oil war, we really don't have any reason to be part of it. This is my this is my theory. I'll call it a theory, and people are so allergic with the word theory because people have been conditioned to believe that when you theorize or you hypothesize, as the CIA coined the term conspiracy theory back in the 60s, that it's bad. To theorize is bad. No, it's not bad. It's only bad when you say it's fact and not state the fact that it's a theory. So I'm going to say it's a theory. Here's my theory, folks. These unending wars has nothing to do, or very little to do, with oil. It has more to do with the military industrial complex. I really think the money is on creating the actual wars, deploying troops, manufacturing bullets, manufacturing tanks, selling tanks. Who knows? Maybe there were under the table dealings. And the Americans are not allowed to deal with terrorists, right? So, what's the best way to sell tanks and all kinds of $1 billion worth of armaments to a terrorist than to pretend that they captured it? What's the best way to cover up such a transaction where the American military industrial complex. Now, when I say American military, I'm not talking about American people, folks. The American people are victims as well of this hoax. The American people, especially the members of the American military, they're the one who sacrificed blood and sweat and limbs to fight these unending wars. This has to stop. But it only stops when we start waking up. When are we going to wake up? We've heard of people going out in the streets and protesting against these wars, but these protests has not reached the critical mass that we need, folks. I guess we're not doing a good job waking people up. The problem is the military industrial complex and the bankers making money off these wars. Folks, don't go away. You're listening to Freedom Fighter Radio only here on The Ordinary Joe. I'm your host. We'll be right back in just less than a minute.
Freedom Fighter Radio. What is up? Whoa! Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio. And Joe, you're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right? Always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes. Hey guys, this is Chris Guy. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
It's Freedom Fighter Radio only here on The Ordinary Joe. I'm your host, Joey Salvador. You're listening to the Freedom Fighter Radio Sunday morning broadcast. Folks, please join our patreon.com. Our Patreon, be part of our Patreon $3 monthly club at patreon.com/OJTV Canada. With your help, we will be able to cover our costs. And with as little as $3 US dollars per month, you'll be able to automatically help us without even hurting anybody. You won't even, if about 1,000 of us just automatically contribute, you won't even feel any kind of pain because everybody lifting a little bit of weight and making the load really feel light. So if you want to help us, folks, please do join us. Join our $3 a month Patreon club at patreon.com/OJTV Canada. And if you want to give us a one-time gift to help us out, to cover for our costs, and also to help us advertise and reach more people and do some boosting and whatnot, fundojtv@gmail.com, fundojtv@gmail.com. I'm trying to also advertise on some community paper. With your help, we'll be able to reach more, and especially those that are lost who hasn't received any of our message. So you're listening to Freedom Fighter Radio on a Sunday morning. I'm your host, Joey Salvador. Thank you for listening in. Tomorrow, Tuesday, tomorrow's Monday, but on Tuesday, Truth Tuesday podcast will be back at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we have another special guest who will be brought by our friend Keith Kumar, who used to be the head of the Libertarian Party in Ontario, and he will be bringing another independent contender for this snap election. We're 9 days from election. What? Let me see. Is that correct? 9 or 8 days now? Oh, we're 8 days away from election day, folks. 8 days away from election day. Make sure we elect many more independent contenders. so that they will not be whipped by any party leaders. We'll talk about tomorrow night, Monday night, Awaken to Freedom. Will awaken everybody to understand how independent contenders or candidates can actually help us out from this tyranny. So, folks, just before the break, we were talking about the military industrial complex and the unending wars, and why I think that many of these wars that's happening in the Middle East, especially with specifically Afghanistan. Afghanistan is such a poor country. Afghan people are wonderful people, but they have been the target of misery. The Afghan people have lost close to, I think, I'll look it up, folks. I'm just basing it from memory. I believe it's more than 100,000 people died in this Afghan war that stretched for almost 20 years. And is it truly ended already? Is it truly ended already? Oh, by the way, I want you guys to check out the last season of blockbuster TV series in the United States called Homeland. Season 8 is actually everything about Afghanistan, about Kabul, about the Taliban. And you know what's funny about that season? Every time you watch Hollywood, folks, always watch it with a grain of salt and also with a critical mind, basing your base knowledge from history and actually what's going on in the world. Oh, Rosemary Spataro, thank you for reminding me Benghazi. Benghazi, where's Benghazi again, folks? Because I know the Benghazi thing. Let me type that. Thank you, Rosemary. Benghazi is that event where the consul was killed in Benghazi. Is Benghazi in where is Benghazi? Is in Libya, right? Okay, so it was in Libya. Benghazi was in Libya, but that's how the ISIS got a hold of all these big guns. That was the wick that exploded the bomb was Benghazi, and then I'm gonna brush up on Benghazi, but I remember that's the second time in history where terrorists were able to get a hold of all these big guns from the Americans. And when we say Americans, it's actually the international community because the Americans always lead the way, but always backed by the United Nations and then the coalition forces. So again, if the Iran Contra deal, I don't think the Iran Contra deal did that bring. Okay, I'm gonna brush up on that too, Rosemary. Thank you for bringing that up. But I know that Iran was like another Vietnam where people are climbing up on the helicopters and rooftops, right? And if you watch the eighth season of Homeland, the eighth season of Homeland is all about Afghanistan. And you know what's funny about this particular season? Is that the last season of Homeland? I think that was the very last, right? Season 8. Season 8 is a blatant propaganda trying to make the Taliban looks like good folks. Here in Canada, folks, we have a minister in Justin Trudeau's government, a minister who called the Taliban her brothers, the Taliban. She called them on a public press con. She calls the Taliban her brothers. Can you believe that? And this is a minister of the government in Trudeau's cabinet. David Carlson was saying the military industrial complex and the arms industry made trillions of dollars from the war in Afghanistan. Exactly. So, this is the longest war. in the history of the United States is the the Afghanistan war, the Afghan war. So I am saying, as a theorist, there's nothing wrong with theorizing, folks. The CIA has coined the term conspiracy theory to dump water on the fire of people who are able to connect the dots and to try and bring up uh, sinister things that doesn't pass the smell test, and people have to look into it closely. But if there's something that the CIA doesn't want you to look closer into, they will name you as a conspiracy theorist, and the media will jump in that bandwagon. And when everybody's calling you conspiracy theorist in a very vilifying, demeaning way, people psychologically just, were conditioned to feel like, oh, conspiracy theory, that is a very bad connotation, a very bad phrase. So people have stopped theorizing. There's nothing wrong with theorizing, folks, because when you're a student of history, you need to start with a theory. And that is the scientific method. How do you find facts? How do you experiment? How do you research and come down with data, with facts on the ground, is by starting with a theory. Starting in scientific community, it's called a hypothesis. You start with a hypothesis and then you prove or try to disprove if your hypothesis is either wrong or valid. And that's how a scientific method is done. So I'm theorizing. I really think that all these unending wars, especially the Middle Eastern wars, many people call them oil wars, but I'm starting to suspect has nothing to do with oil. Or if it has, it's probably very little to do with oil. I think it has to do with bankers and the war machines. If wars end, there will be no more business for war machines. If there are no wars in the Middle East, there will be no reason to manufacture more war machines. But what's the sad story about all these folks? I think that the oligarchs and the big banks, the Federal Reserve, the cartel who started the Federal Reserve, the billionaires and the trillionaires, I would really suspect some of these owners of the Federal Reserve who has been there for decades upon decades now. Wait, actually, it's more than a century now because it was 1913. So in 2013, they actually exceeded 100 years of this big deception that they have created, the Federal Reserve, right? All of these private bankers owning the Federal Reserve, deceiving people, especially the American people, to think that the Federal Reserve is owned by the federal government, but nothing about the Federal Reserve, nothing about it is federal in any way. The Federal Reserve are owned by oligarchs, by the one percenters. The Federal Reserve are owned by the Rothschilds, the JP Morgans, the Rockefellers. They own most of the economy of the world, this very few handful people. And they're the ones who's making profit from all the wars, because all wars are banker wars. So really, I think it has very little to do with the oil. But this is the sad thing, folks. Number one, who pays the price for all of these wars? The young, ordinary Jane and Joe American men and women who signed up for the military. They thought they were fighting against terrorism, right? There were there were an emotional uh, knee-jerk reaction after the 9/11 attacks. People wants to retaliate. They want their revenge, and people are afraid that if they don't, cut the serpent by the head, that these attacks like the 9/11 might happen again. So young men and women are signing up for the military to fight against the terrorists. Fighting against a terrorist, man, that created a lot of complexities, because before fighting against drug wars and terror wars and all this, now what are we fighting? We're fighting a war against a virus that nobody has seen, nobody has isolated, but everybody's afraid of, right? So fighting against a terror organization, we name them as Taliban, Al Qaeda, ISIS, right? But those are small players. I think, unfortunately, those are the small players of this entire debacle. The bigger players are the profiteers of the industrial complex, the war machines. They're the ones making money. And who's paying the price? Young American men and women giving up limbs, blood, lives, and treasure. The business of war is a churning war. It's a way of, how can I put it? Here's what I'm going to say about the business of war. The business of war is a money laundering way of sucking up the life from taxpayers' treasure chest, sucking up the life from a country's treasure and funneling it to the pockets of the few. Let me say that again. The business of war, it's a money laundering method of sucking up the treasure of any nation. In this example, specifically, the treasure of the United States of America, sucking it up, and all the coalition partners sucking up the life and the treasure of the country that was put up by all its citizens, sucking up the life. So essentially, sucking up the life and the money of the people, and methodically and legally funnel it so that it will fall into the pockets of a few. So they're not only sucking up the life of the funds of the treasury, but they're sucking up the life of the people, as almost 2,000 Americans has given their lives in the Afghan war, and over 100,000 Afghan lives have perished because of these unending wars. At the end, what has been accomplished? I will tell you what I think was accomplished. And I have about a minute again before our last break. And then after the break, we are going to close the show. This is what has been accomplished by this unending war. The biggest accomplishment is funneling the treasure of the country to the pockets of the few, specifically bankers. Number one. Number two, allowing that military industrial complex to keep on running, the war machine, the war business keep on running, yet depleting its value. Remember before Trump became the president, the American military was so depleted. So they prop it up again for what? So that they can give all of these gears to the Afghans? Well, sorry, actually, it's not the Afghans, it's the Taliban. It's the Taliban. Right after the last president, Trump, just built the military. Remember, the military was depleted before Trump came on the president's office. The American military was depleted. They funded it, they built it up, and what's next? They gave all of those tanks and helicopters and guns and bullets to the Taliban. Wow, good business. So that's the second accomplishment of all these unending wars is giving the enemy, giving the enemy the tool to keep the war going on so that they can keep on churning this machine. But I think the ultimate goal eventually is to deplete the value of the American military and also insert all kinds of wokeness that we hear about what's going on in the American military now. The general who does a lot of woke rhetorics, blaming the white Americans for being or assuming that all white Americans that's still very dominant in the military, accusing them of being naturally racist people. So we got wokeness in the American military. We got American military being depleted, the United Nations gaining strength, the terrorists gaining strength, and China eventually will be the most super powerful war machine there is, and the Americans won't be able to measure up because the Americans have been spending its energy and resources in all of these unending wars and giving away their military equipment to terrorists. At the end, it's a successful, very successful plan to deplete American military, which most of us, even us here in Canada, we're looking to the Americans to help us and defend us. Do you know that the Canadian military is one of the tiniest, I would say, and we don't have here in Canada, we don't have the motivation to build our military. We don't have the motivation to build our military in Canada. And I had this discussion in some of our podcast episodes previously, and I was always wondering why does Canada doesn't have that drive to build the military in Canada. We only have 30 million people here. You know, growing up in the Philippines, the Filipinos worldwide, we're about 100 million. There's about 100 million Filipinos. But I remember growing up that every male, actually every person who goes to college will have some sort of military training. We have military training even in high school. We call it the Cadet Army Training or CAT in the Philippines. And if you go to college, you'll have something very similar to the Americans we call ROTC, Regional Officer Training Course. And growing up, I always thought, well, we don't have a choice. The Filipinos have to build our military from our citizenry because we're a small country. We are a small country. We're only 100 million people. Canada is not even half of that, folks. and we don't have any desire, any motivation to build our own military in Canada. Why is that? I wonder. Remember, we have got so much treasure to protect. We have one of the top sources of oil in the world, and we're not building our military. Why is that? And why is that when we see UN trucks being lined up and manufactured here in Toronto, people are saying, look away, there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. We're just a manufacturing province. That's why we're manufacturing UN trucks here. I am smelling something very, very sinister about this, folks, because if the military, the UN military build up, keeps continuing on, and we don't have the military power in Canada, and we thought that we can count on the US, maybe that was the one of the reason we're not building our military. I think I asked a few people, what's the mentality behind it? So some of the people told me probably because we are neighbors to the Americans, who has one of the biggest military infrastructure in the world, right? So we don't need to build our military. Our cousins in the South will come to our aid if we ever have to face. Remember, Russia is just north of us. Russia is just north of us. China can cross over the North Pole and come over here. The Chinese can march. They can march on foot and come to the northern side of Canada. Why are we not building our military in Canada? So, if the thought pattern was, well, we can count on our American brothers and sisters down in the South, they have a big military. But the military is being depleted down south. All of the military value, military energy are being spent on unending wars. Their military gears are being given to the Afghans. Yet there's a buildup of UN trucks as well in the United States. There's a buildup of UN troops in the United States. Why is that? What's going on here? Again, I'm just theorizing. Is it part of the end game? I think it's part of the end game, if you ask me. It's not a conspiracy theory when there's proof, according to David. Thank you, David. Rosemary was saying on the comment section, Iran Contra deal. I'm going to brush up on that. I know the Iran Contra deal was has also involved quite a bit of money as well, I believe. David was saying that was during the Reagan years, I believe. Yeah, the when they're trying to kick out the Soviets, that was in the Reagan years. You're right about that. David was saying, I agree, OJ. The central bank and the Federal Reserve are complicit. The Federal Reserve is the biggest money laundering entity in the world. Yes, brother, you're right about that. They are laundering taxpayers oh, oh, I don't want to get started with this because it's going to be a long talk, but just maybe suffice to say, you guys know, you guys know that personal income tax in the United States, and I believe that's the same in Canada, it doesn't really pay for our infrastructure. When we pay personal income tax, which was unconstitutional prior to the 1913 years, personal income tax were not charged on individuals prior to 1913, both in Canada and the United States. We never had personal income tax. And what I believe, I heard an explanation goes that goes like this, but again, do your own research. I can just barely remember this from my foggy memory, but I heard an explanation from a certain book that I read before, but that prior to 1913, it was illegal for the government to tax the produce or any kinds of productivity of a beast of burden, for example, an ox or a bull. When you use them to plow your farms, those beasts of burdens cannot be taxed. So if a beast of burden cannot be taxed, why are we taxing people for their labor? It was unconstitutional prior to 1913. Personal income tax was unconstitutional prior to the 1913 years. What happened in 1913? 1913 was the creation of the Federal Reserve. And in the same midnight before Christmas, when everybody has left Washington, D.C. to go to their home cities and home states to celebrate Christmas, the creature from Jekyll Island was ratified in Congress almost midnight before Christmas. And that was the creation of the Federal Reserve. With the creation of the Federal Reserve, who will pay? So, what does that essentially right now? What do we understand in this community of radio listeners? Do we understand how do they function? The Federal Reserve, which is also the sort of like cookie cutter model, similar for the Bank of Canada and all the central banks worldwide. Do you know how they function? Well, basically, they print the money, right? So they print the money out of thin air, and the money printed by the printing presses of the central banks are now lent to the government. Okay, there's no value on those printed paper unless, you know, now it's official. It's an official government tender, but it's not owned by the government. The government is borrowing from the central bank, borrowing with the promise to pay interest on that loan. And what is the central bank loaning the government? Well, printed money. So what what cost how did it cost these banks to come up with these billions or even trillions of dollars that they lent to the governments? What cost them? What costed them to come up with this capital? Nothing. The paper and the ink that they use to print those money. And then they deliver it to the government, and the government is now owing the money from the Federal Reserves or the central banks, and the government has to pay it back with interest. So, where are they going to get the interest payments from? Your personal income tax. So, the personal income tax doesn't even build our hospitals and our roads and our public schools. Why do we keep on asking for donation in public schools here in Toronto? If all of our personal income tax are being put to good use, then it should be paying for our military, it should be paying for our roads and our banks, not banks, sorry, our roads and our bridges and our schools and our hospitals, right? No, it's not paying for that. The funds that go to those come from something else. Our personal income tax is only for one purpose, and that's to pay for the interest of the money loaned from the central banks. That's what our sweat and labor. Folks, do you know that in Ontario, the highest tax rate charges about 49%? And in other provinces, I heard of tax rates that go up to 60%. Can you believe that? If you're working 10 hours a day, 6 hours of those is for the government. You're working just to give all of those earnings to the government first. And then maybe after your second lunch, then the last 4 hours of your labor is now for you. What? Wait, 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 wait. You have to pay taxes on those too. All right, J. Look White, just like the Bank of Canada, it's a private bank. Yes. J. Look White saying they are fighting for them to get richer, not for the people. Yes. Yes. Thank you, J. Look. David was saying there are about 13 families who own everything, e.g., food distribution, pharmaceutical companies, energy, etc. Poly St. George has an excellent flow chart showing their connection. It would be awesome to have that flow chart, brother. It'd be nice if you can email that to me, joseph.salvador at ordinaryjoeshow.ca. J. Luke White was saying false flag after false flag. Yes. David was saying, yes, General Miley is a woke bloke. Amen to that, brother. J. Luke White was saying Russia is just over 80 kilometers from Alaska. Yeah, you can walk 80 kilometers. You know, you can bike, you can walk, you can, I don't know, um, you can snowshoe maybe 80 kilometers. I'm not sure, but I can imagine I can do 100 kilometers if I marathon. 100 kilometers is probably for Ontarians. I would estimate 100 kilometers is from here to Milton. Um, okay, let's be a little bit more conservative. I would say from here to St. Catharines, Ontario. That's 100 kilometers, I would think. I can actually go to Google Map right now and check it, but we're about to close here, so I'll do it next time, folks. Jay Lukoy was saying the global debt total to an all-time high of 281 trillion by the end of 2020, or more than 355% of global GDP. Oh my goodness. World Health Organization is going to pay this. LOL. Wow, man, that's a good point, J. Look. Oh, but awesome if you can send me some links, please, to some of these research, some of these facts you're sharing here. It would be awesome. It would be nice if I can get a hold of it. So, folks, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to do our last segment of this Sunday morning show. But don't go away. This is Freedom Fighter Radio. You're listening to Freedom Fighter Radio. I'm your host, Joey Salvador. Only here on the Ordinary Joe. What's going on? There's a problem with that one. So don't go away. We'll be right back just after these short messages.
Freedom Fighter Radio, what is up? Whoa! Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio and Joe. You're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right, always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes. Hey guys, this is Chris Guy. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
Oh, sorry. I kept on talking, kept on talking, kept on talking, but nobody's hearing. I was just talking about how I'd like you guys to start scanning the QR code you can see on the bottom right. Please join our mailing list so that I can send you the link to a free download. But we are also live on Rumble right now. Apologize, folks. Every time I do a little cough, I mute myself and I just forget to unmute me. And people are leaving when I'm not talking. I was talking, but I'm not. I'm, I'm I'm muted. And we are live on Rumble, folks. Please go to the comment section right now and click on our Rumble link. Please subscribe to our Rumble because I'm learning our lesson right now. The scripture says, right, build your house on a rock because those who build their house on a sand, the wind will come, the storm will come, the rain will fall, and that house will collapse. And it seems like that building our following base up to we have one page that has 15,000 followers or listeners to our show, and another page with the small page with another 3,000 followers. So that's 18,000 altogether. But we're not even broadcasting there right now. We're prohibited, we're restricted by Facebook to go live there. So we're learning our lesson. Don't build your house upon the sand. And this is a sand that we built our house on. It's it's very bad that we started building our house on this sand, a eroding sand here on Facebook. It's very bad. Although there's supposed to be 18,000 that are being notified when we go live, 18,000 followers should be notified every time I hit that live button. None of them are notified right now. So, is that fair? Is that fair that we're building here and we're not even able to go live to tell them that we're live? It's not fair. It's not fair at all. So, folks, please get the link on Rumble. Go to Rumble. Please subscribe to our Rumble so that in the future we're all going to transition to listen to our show on Rumble instead of Facebook. Facebook will find an opportunity relentlessly. It will find an opportunity to silence us, to mute us, to shut us up. Because I believe, Facebook are part of the big tech. They're part of all the profiteers of what's going on. So, of course, they will silence us. So, let's go to Rumble. Up to this point, Rumble's not silencing anybody. So, Rumble is respecting freedom of speech and freedom of the press. So, please go there. And then also, eventually, we'll be able to go live on Zeno.fm. So, folks, let's close this episode with if people can still keep on bringing some of the comments. My thoughts for today is that we really have to push back. In Canada, let's speak to our MPs. I know many of them are, globalist, but we have an opportunity to elect more independents so that people can take back their government, people can take back their country. I really think that we need to participate in elections because we cannot complain if the tyrants are taking, gobbling up, and monopolizing governance and policies when they're the only ones that are present there. If we are not there, if the people are not in our legislative assemblies, we cannot complain if we don't participate. I think next year's election here in Ontario, I really want to make it my own personal goal as well to help as many independents who will run for the MPP's position or the member of provincial parliament. We really need to get back our province, folks. And provincial politics and provincial governance, in many respects, has more power than the federal government in our. So we have to really pay attention on provincial elections. We have a provincial election happening next year, I believe, and some of our independent MPs are doing a practice run right now on this snap election. Whatever they can learn from this, if they're sort of like our newbies, we have four that I know are independent running for this election. We need to support our independents, but next year I believe there's gonna be many more independent, and with the anger from the freedom movement that we can feel right now on the heat map, I totally believe that we are going to be able to install a lot of independent MPPs in Ontario next year. Let's pray for that, folks. But all of us needs to come together and help. Um, so all wars are banker wars. I really believe that the war machine, the military-industrial complex, are the one who's profiting from these unending wars. And I believe that the reason that the Taliban were given $1 billion worth of gears is so that in the future, very very near future, it it's enabling the enemy to give another excuse for the Americans to go war again, right? So I think this very unceremonious pull out, they should have pulled out before she got pregnant. But no, folks, we are in it. We are we need to get rid of the global cabal. And how do we do that? Can we fight against them? We don't have guns, we don't have the money, we don't have mainstream media so that we can communicate to the masses. We don't. And even if right now, if we're given a microphone so that we can speak to everyone, most everyone won't want to listen because they already succumb to fear and to the lies and to the deception of the tyrants. Tomorrow, folks, I want to talk about how do we create our own new society. I think there comes a time when the storm is coming that you cannot fight the storm. We will fight as much as we can. We will bring the fight to the enemy as much as we can, but we must also have other alternative plans if the government, if the tyrants are able to really go full tyranny on us and roll out the vaccine passports and pluck people from their homes and bring them to concentration camps. These are part of their plans. We have to have an alternative plans if they are going to be successful. And I think in military science there's a strategy where you fight head on, but there's also a strategy to retreat and look for shelter. I think we need both strategies. We need to fight as much as we can, but if comes a season that we need to retreat and find a shelter, folks, I really think that we need to huddle together and find our own communities, so that build our own communities, build our own neighborhoods, so that we'll be in proximity with each other. Just imagine if all of us freedom fighters, if all of us who are awake, if we live not too far away from each other, and the contact tracers and the tyrants are coming to grab our kids or force vaccination into our neighborhood. If we live close to each other, we can put together a defense. If all of our neighbors, like right now where I live, I don't know if 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 the police come and barging through our doors and forcing our little kid or any member of my family, if they're gonna force us to inject us with the the vaccine that we don't want, will my neighbors here in our apartment come to our rescue? I don't think so. I'm hoping that I'm in close proximity with all of you guys who listen to the radio, so that when we call help, help, we are being forced. We are being our rights are being breached. If our neighbors are all awake and freedom loving and defending their rights, then maybe you can come to our rescue and we can barricade. We can form a human barricade so that the tyrants cannot come in. But no, not my neighbors here. I don't think any of my neighbors where I live will come to the rescue. But now I heard that many of our freedom fighters, especially those who are outspoken, who takes on the stage and the microphone during the rallies, those who are active in putting together the rallies and the protests, many of them are thinking of, bailing out. I have heard other podcasters now talking about where to go if Canada falls and go full tyranny. Where can we go? They're thinking of Mexico, thinking of other countries, listing possible countries where they can flee to. But why do we think that way? Why don't we think of like, well, think of a place in our province where we can all flee to and build our own neighborhoods so that we can defend ourselves if we are banding together. Instead of going elsewhere, I think the entire world will fall. I think there's no country in earth where you can run to and not have a vaccine mandate or a vaccine passport because they're all in lockstep together. Remember, folks, they are all in lockstep together. Their agenda crosses boundaries of you know uh, national demarcation. They're all in lockstep. It's a one world government. It's the global government. It's the new world order. They're all in lockstep together. All the governments of the world. There's no country on earth where you can flee to away from tyranny. I think the entire planet's falling. So if the planet's falling, why do we think of flying somewhere else? I think my suggestion is that everybody start having a conversation. How can we band together? Maybe build our own neighborhoods. That's my suggestion. We'll talk more about that next episode. We kind of run out of time today, but I would like everybody's opinion on it, everybody's thoughts on it. We have to start thinking about that. Growing our own food, not relying on the supply chain management that is established by the social engineers, the civil engineers, city engineers. I really think, folks, I really think that we have to think of both strategy, the attack strategy and the retreat strategy. If it looks like the tyrants are going to go full tyranny on us and we don't have a choice, let's find a way to band together, create our own neighborhoods, live in proximity of each other so that we can defend one another and we can stand on each for each other's rights. That's just my thoughts. What do you guys think? I hope to see you again tomorrow morning and let's have a conversation about that. Or if there are other topics you want us to tackle on and if you have research you want to share, let's talk about it here on Freedom Fighter Radio. It's only by us staying in touch with each other can we truly create a community, albeit online for now, but I believe that this can be a start of many good things to follow. So, folks, you've been listening to Freedom Fighter Radio. I'm your host, Joey Salvador, on a Sunday morning broadcast. I hope to see you again tomorrow, and we are going to try and maintain our daily morning shows. Again, we have two new segments. We have Lawyers for Truth on Thursdays. We kind of pilot that a week, 2 weeks ago. And starting this Thursday, we are going to have regular segments from Lawyers for Truth. We're also developing a segment for our friends from British Columbia so that we can be staying in touch with what's going on with the freedom movement, the freedom community in British Columbia. Well, folks, please help us out. Patreon.com/ OJTV Canada. Join our $3 a month club. And we need about 1,000. Hopefully, we're praying for 1,000 to subscribe before the year is over. Right now, we only have four, but that's quite a big ambition, you would say. But there's nothing impossible with God. There's nothing is impossible. So I'm putting my faith in God and also my trust in every single one of you who will help spread the word. Please do spread the word. Please do spread the message. As soon as we go off live, we're not live anymore. This will be available on Zeno.fm, on our Zeno FM radio app. And also, it will be available on the 15,000 follower page, Freedom Fighter Radio Canada. I'll be uploading it right now. Folks, I'll see you again tomorrow. This is Freedom Fighter Radio. I'm your host, Joey Salvador. Join us again tomorrow morning for another session of Freedom Fighter Radio only here on The Ordinary Joe. God bless you all. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye bye.
Freedom Fighter Radio, what is up? Whoa!
Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio. And Joe, you're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right? Always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Show.
Hey, folks, this is Joey Salvador. You're listening live on Freedom Fighter Radio. We are simulcasting for the very first time. We are simulcasting our live casts not only on social media, except for Rumble. Rumble we didn't set up tonight, but I'm pretty sure with the testing that we did today, Rumble will work very well simultaneously with our social media and also our brand new live casting ability on our radio app Zeno.fm. So, folks, please download Zeno FM. And for everybody who's listening on social media, we are going to say goodbye to you for now. We'll see you tomorrow morning, but we are going to continue the broadcasting on Zeno.fm because now we are going to start to talk about some sensitive issues that social media are very, very allergic to here. So there are some things that we cannot discuss here. Some things that are more of like the actual planning, the actual organization. How are we going to push back? How are we going to fight back against the tyranny that's happening on Earth today? Folks, please download Zeno.fm. Our channel on Zeno.fm radio app is OJTV Canada. OJTV. Let me wait a second. Let me see what's the name again. OJTV radio. Zeno.fm /OJTV radio. You can also listen online on your browser, but I would suggest to download the app. When you download the app, you'll be able to just listen to us. So, folks, thank you to all those who were following us, listening to us on the social media. James Arnejo, Crystal Canali, Vivian Jackson, Chrissy Franciotti, Paul Inarson, Jez Arenberg, Jeannie Kennings, and many more that I cannot see on my platform. Chris Lawrence, David Carlson. So, folks, I'll see you tomorrow. Whoever wants to continue on this social media, but those who have downloaded the app, we are going to continue on after we say goodbye to social media viewers and listeners. We're going to say goodbye to them now. Well, I'm going to count down, but we are going to continue on Zeno FM. So, folks, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Zeno FM listeners, our Freedom Fighter Radio app listeners, continue on with us on the app. God bless you. Have a good night. We'll see you again tomorrow, but we'll see you in just a second for those who are going to uh, stay with us on the Zeno FM. So, this is Freedom Fighter Radio. We'll see you again tomorrow. God bless you all. I'm your host, Joey Salvador. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio only here on The Ordinary Joe.